Well, friends, this morning we hear from the prophet Isaiah, and he begins this morning with these words from God. It says, "Comfort, O comfort my people." And God speaks through Isaiah into a dark time to let the people know that God is listening. God's paying attention. God is coming. God is going to do something. Now, you may remember last week we were with the prophet Jeremiah, and Jeremiah was in a pit in the courtyard in Jerusalem as the Babylonians were sieging Jerusalem, and it was obvious that they were soon going to be conquered and sent into exile. And in the midst of that pit and in the midst of that hopelessness, the prophet Jeremiah heard God's words of hope. God saying, "I know this all seems hopeless, but I promise you there will once again be laughter in these streets. There will once again be reason to live. There will be joy. I promise." And so today, Isaiah also, in the midst of a very dark time, hears these words of God's promise. Now, in Isaiah's case, he is in exile. The city has been taken over. The people have been hauled away. And after a number of years in exile comes the promise that God's going to bring them home again, that God hasn't forgotten, that God's coming. And so, again, this morning, we hear these promises of our God that remind us that we are not alone, that God sees us, that God's with us, and that God provides ways for us to new life. That is so much what the Advent season is all about, this time of waiting and watching for God to show up, for God to do something. And we're invited in this season to have a kind of waiting that is expectant waiting. That expectancy being, we know that God can be counted on. We expect God to do something. We're watching for God to do something. And so as we draw nearer to Christmas and we wait to celebrate Jesus coming to this earth in a much bigger way, we're celebrating all the ways and we're looking for all the ways that God comes to us and God comes through us. So this morning, I hope that you can hear that God's not forgotten you, that God will make a way for you to come home, that God will come and make things right. And even in the midst of the darkest times, God is still there. God is with us. We hear God's promises. And so this morning, we are reminded that we are to ground ourselves in God's promises, but also, ultimately, what we'll hear this morning is that we also ground ourselves in God's mission, to be the light in the darkness. So let's begin in Isaiah 40. We hear these words. "Comfort, oh, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that she has served her term, that her penalty is paid, that she's received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins." So God comes to speak through Isaiah to say to the people, listen, I'm with you. I see you. I hear you. God comes with comfort and compassion and mercy and grace for a people who are devastated and suffering. And as this reading progresses this morning, we hear God saying, hey, lift up your eyes. Open your hearts. I'm coming. And so much for us in the midst of our hard times is to prepare our hearts and minds to see God, to receive God. This season is about getting ready. So I encourage you today to get ready, to open your eyes, make space in your heart for God to speak. You see, whatever pain you're dealing with, whatever suffering is plaguing you, whatever addiction keeps calling or failure keeps haunting you, God calls you with words of comfort and hope. See, this also means that it's a time for change. It's a time for new life. And that's really what our God specializes in, new life. And here at New Heights, we embody that as we make this transition, don't we? New life. Time for a change. God is up to something. So the reading continues this morning, and we hear this. A voice cries out, "In the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken." Prepare the way of the Lord. In other words, open your eyes, make room in your heart. God is coming. Now, for these folks in exile, I want to remind you of their situation. So after they were conquered, they were hauled away on foot to a faraway place. They're separated from home literally by a vast wilderness of mountains and valleys. So not only can they literally not see home, But figuratively, they can't see. They can't see God. They can't see hope. The darkness closes in. Their view is obscured. They can't see. And maybe you're in a time like that, or you've been in a time like that, where you can't see God. You literally can't see God. And what the prophet says here is, prepare the way. Those mountains, they're going to be made low. Those valleys are going to be brought up. The desert road will be made smooth and straight. You will see God. God is coming to you, and God will make a way for you to come home. Open your eyes. Get ready. God is coming. There's a way home, and you will see God again. For so many of us, often we feel like there's these obstacles in our way, right? There's things in front of us that just, we can't move them. And how do we get to God? How do we get where God's taking us? We can't get these things out of our way. That's what the prophet is talking about here. The obstacles will be removed. Friends, it's important for us to remember that when we're in those places in our lives, that we're not the first one and we're not the only one. This is what it means to be human. Life is hard. And there are lots of times, unfortunately, in our lives where there are mountains in front of us. There are lots of times in our lives where there is a valley that we feel like we cannot cross. There are lots of times in our lives. Young people, every adult in this room has been through it multiple times. And we want you to hear that this is life. But we don't do it alone. We do it together. And that's why we're a part of a place like this, because you have people who are always with you no matter what, and a God who comes to us no matter what. And so the prophet says today, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight. Our God is coming. So he continues then, and now this is interesting because maybe you're having the same reaction. The prophet Isaiah basically says like, okay, that sounds great, but really? And this is what he says. So a voice says, cry out. And I said, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass. Their constancy is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades when the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. Right? Isaiah's like, what's the point, God? Like, this all stinks. Our life is fleeting. Like, what's the point here? And I think so often, right, we hear God's promises and we might have that same reaction like, God, really? Like, it's not helpful. The promise isn't helpful right now. I don't see the point. That's the place that Isaiah is at in this passage. He's tired. He's really tired of what's been going on. He's tired. And so the words just sound meaningless. But then there's a challenge to that. And so listen to how this passage then comes to completion today as we think about what it means for us to be grounded in God's promises and grounded in our mission. It continues, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. Get you up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good news. Lift up your voice with strength, O Jerusalem, herald of good news. Lift it up, do not fear. Say to the cities of Judah, here is your God. See, the Lord comes with might, and his arm rules with him. His reward is with him, and his recompense before him. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother sheep. Do you hear how that part of the passage began? Yes, indeed, grass does wither, flowers do fade, but God's word stands forever. It says, yes, there is much in this life that comes and goes. But there's something that we can count on, something we can ground ourselves in, a foundation we can build on, our God who stands forever, our God who we can count on, a God who is always with us. And so he says, listen, you got a job to do. Get up on the mountaintop and proclaim the good news. Go out there and lift up your voice with strength. Don't fear. Say to the people, here is your God. Here is your God. Friends, this is a reminder for us about what we're about in this place. Even when it's hard, we're reminded that God is with us and we can ground ourselves in God's promises. And then ultimately, we are a part of what God is doing in this world. Our job is to proclaim those promises, to point to God and say, look, here God is. And we live in a time and a place where our world is hurting, maybe like never before. Right? Mental health issues are skyrocketing right now. And people all around our culture have given up on church, many given up on God, oftentimes for good reason. And God has put us in this time and place to be a herald of good tidings, to be a place that points to God and says, no, God is real. No, God is here. No, God loves you. No, there's a community here that you can be a part of where you get to make a difference. You see, God actually has come to do something. God is at work in this world, and it's right here in and through God's people. As we ground ourselves in God's promises, we are called to ground ourselves in God's mission. That mission to be a place of refuge, to be a place of love, to be a place of purpose and meaning, to be a people who meet others where they're at and help them to discover again who God is. We have been blessed with this incredible space that we are now moving into, and you already heard from Francine this morning. You know, she just gave you the tip of the iceberg of what's happening through Heights Unlimited, of the ways that lives are being touched. That's real, tangible difference that's being made. Now we're in one space together, and we get to interface with people and connect with them and build relationships together. We're now in a building that we can connect with people in ways we couldn't before. You know, we made a lot of choices along the way to become kind of a different kind of church. Our theology hasn't changed. We believe the same things we've always believed about who our God is and who we are as God's people. But the way we express that has changed a bit over time, hasn't it? Right? And so we have a building that most people would not drive up to and go, oh, there's a church. And for some of us, that doesn't quite feel right. We want our building to look like a church. We want it to feel like a church. But for all those people who have given up on God, for all those people who have given up on church, this is a place they might consider discovering God all over again, right? That's our mission. That's what we've been asked to do. To point to God, to say, here is your God. But our job is to communicate the gospel in a way that it can be heard, right? And so we don't stand on a street corner screaming at people. And we don't say, hey, you better get it right or else. We say, do you know that there's a God who loves you? And our job is to embody that love. Welcome. Be a part of this. God's doing cool stuff in this place when we do it together. Come and be a part of it. That's what we get to do here. That's what we get to be here. So this word today comes to a people who have lost everything. And we can understand that Isaiah isn't so sure he wants to buy in to this good news that God is giving him. We can understand that, can't we? And yet, Isaiah is reminded that God is so much bigger than all the hard stuff. That God is so much bigger than his doubt. God is so much bigger than his pain. That God can be counted on. And we too, today, are reminded of that good news. It's not that it's easy, but it's that God is always with us. And together in community, we can do this. So friends, I invite you over these next weeks to continue to pray for eyes to see, for a heart that's open to receive, but ultimately to be praying for what's to come, for this mission that God's given us, to really love our community in ways that they get to know who God is. That's our job. Let's keep doing that together. Let's pray. Mighty God, we thank you that you come to us even when we can't see you, even when we wonder if you're even there. We thank you that you never give up on us, that you never forget about us, that you always see us. God, help us to see you. Help us to be open to receiving you. God, help us to believe that you will remove the obstacles that are in our way. That you will come and literally move mountains. That you will come and make a straight pathway. But help us also, God, to move those mountains for others. To make a pathway for others. Help us to be those heralds of good news that point to you, that share your love, that help people to know that they're not forgotten. So God, we pray each day that you draw us near, that you remind us who we are, and that you send us to be a blessing in this world. We pray these things in Jesus' name.